While Elvis was performing on stage, he heard little Lucy singing her own composition. But the magical connection created in that moment would drop Elvis's professional mask and reveal his true emotions. Lucy Martinez was a remarkable 9-year-old girl with an extraordinary gift for music and an innocent heart that overflowed with creativity and wonder. Living in the bustling city of Memphis, Tennessee, she had grown up surrounded by the rich musical heritage that flowed through every street corner, every radio station, and every conversation in the city that had given birth to so many legendary artists. Her small apartment, which she shared with her hardworking mother, Isabella, and her younger brother, Miguel, was filled with the constant sound of music from morning until night. Unlike many children her age who simply enjoyed listening to popular songs, Lucy possessed an innate ability to create her own melodies and lyrics that seemed to flow from some deep well of emotion and imagination within her young soul. She would spend hours sitting by the window in their modest living room, humming original tunes while she watched the world go by on the busy street below. Her mother often found her scribbling lyrics on scraps of paper, creating little poems and songs about everything from the stray cats that wandered through their neighborhood to the dreams she had about meeting her musical heroes. Lucy's fascination with music had begun when she was barely 5 years old, after her mother had saved up enough money to buy a small, second-hand radio for their apartment. The first song that had truly captured her imagination was "Love Me Tender" by Elvis Presley, and from that moment forward, the king of rock and roll had become not just her favorite singer, but her primary inspiration for the songs she wrote herself. She would listen to Elvis's records over and over again, studying not just the melodies and rhythms, but the way he expressed emotion through his voice, the way he could make a simple love song sound like a prayer, and the way his music seemed to speak directly to people's hearts. What made Lucy truly special wasn't just her love for Elvis's music, but her remarkable ability to understand and replicate the emotional depth that made his songs so powerful. At an age when most children were still learning to express their own feelings clearly, Lucy was already writing songs that captured complex emotions with surprising sophistication and genuine heart. Her lyrics might have been simple in their language, but they carried a sincerity and emotional truth that would have impressed professional songwriters many times her age. Isabella, who worked long hours as a seamstress in a local textile factory, recognized her daughter's exceptional talent, but struggled to provide the kind of musical education and opportunities that Lucy's abilities deserved. Money was always tight in their household, and luxuries like piano lessons or professional music instruction were simply beyond their financial reach. However, Isabella made sure to encourage Lucy's creativity in every way she could, buying her inexpensive notebooks where she could write down her songs, and always taking time to listen when Lucy wanted to share her latest musical creation. The songs that Lucy wrote were deeply personal and reflected her unique perspective on the world around her. She wrote about her mother's tired hands after long days at work, about her little brother's laughter echoing through their small apartment, about the elderly man who sat on the stoop next door and told stories about the old days in Memphis. But most often, she wrote about love, not romantic love, which she was still too young to fully understand, but the kind of pure, unconditional love that she felt for her family, her community, and the music that filled her heart with joy. One of Lucy's most treasured possessions was a composition notebook that her mother had given her for her 8th birthday. The cover was decorated with musical notes that Lucy had drawn herself, and inside its pages were dozens of original songs that she had written over the course of nearly 2 years. Some were complete with both lyrics and melodies that she had worked out on an old toy keyboard that a neighbor had given her, while others were still works in progress, waiting for the right inspiration to bring them to completion. The song that would change Lucy's life forever had come to her on a particularly difficult day when her mother had been feeling overwhelmed by their financial struggles. Isabella had been sitting at their small kitchen table, paying bills and trying to stretch their limited budget to cover cover all their necessary expenses when Lucy had noticed the worried expression on her mother's face. That evening, after her mother had gone to bed, Lucy had sat by the window with her notebook and written a song called "Everything's Gonna Be All Right." The lyrics were simple but powerful, expressing a child's unwavering faith that love and family could overcome any hardship. The melody was sweet and hopeful, with a gentle rhythm that seemed to rock away worries and fears. When Lucy had first sung it to her mother the next morning, Isabella had been moved to tears by the pure love and optimism that shone through every word. It was the kind of song that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than mere childhood imagination. It felt like a gift, a small miracle wrapped in melody and delivered through the voice of a 9-year-old girl. The opportunity for Lucy to share this special song with the world came in the most unexpected way possible. Elvis Presley had announced a series of intimate concerts at small venues throughout Memphis, designed to reconnect with his roots and give back to the community that had supported him from the beginning of his career. One of these concerts was scheduled to take place at the Paradise Theater, a small but historic venue that was located just a few blocks from Lucy's apartment building. When Isabella heard about the concert, she knew immediately that she had to find a way to take Lucy to see her idol perform live. Even though tickets were expensive and money was scarce, she worked extra hours and saved every penny she could spare for weeks leading up to the show. She wanted to give her daughter this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see Elvis perform in person, knowing how much it would mean to Lucy and hoping that the experience might inspire her to continue developing her own musical talents. The night of the concert arrived with an electric atmosphere that seemed to permeate the entire neighborhood surrounding the Paradise Theater. Fans had been gathering outside the venue since early afternoon, sharing stories about their favorite Elvis songs and speculating about what surprises the king might have in store for such an intimate performance. Lucy and Isabella arrived about an hour before the show was scheduled to begin, and Lucy was practically vibrating with excitement as they found their seats in the small theater. The Paradise Theater held fewer than 300 people, creating an incredibly intimate setting that was unlike the massive stadiums and arenas where Elvis typically performed. The stage was small and simple, decorated only with basic lighting and a few microphone stands. But to Lucy, it might as well have been the most magical place on earth. She clutched her composition notebook tightly in her lap, having brought it with her. Not with any specific plan in mind, but simply because it felt wrong to attend an Elvis concert without having her songs nearby. When Elvis finally took the stage, wearing a simple black shirt and jeans instead of one of his elaborate jumpsuits, the small audience erupted into applause that seemed to shake the very foundations of the historic theater. Lucy clapped until her hands hurt, her young face glowing with pure joy and admiration as she watched her hero settle in with his guitar and begin his intimate acoustic set. The concert was everything Lucy had dreamed it would be and more. Elvis's voice, stripped of the elaborate studio production and massive orchestral arrangements that characterized his biggest hits, sounded raw and emotional in a way that spoke directly to Lucy's songwriter heart. She found herself studying not just his vocal technique, but the way he connected with each song, the way he seemed to live inside every lyric, and the way his genuine emotion transformed simple melodies into profound statements about love, loss, hope, and human connection. As Elvis moved through his carefully chosen set list, performing both familiar hits and lesser-known deep cuts from his catalog, Lucy felt her own creative spirit awakening in response to the magic happening on stage. She began to understand, in a way that she had never quite grasped before, what it meant to be a true artist, someone who could take personal experiences and emotions and transform them into music that touched other people's hearts. About halfway through the concert, Elvis paused between songs to talk to the audience about the importance of music in bringing communities together and the special place that Memphis held in his heart. As he spoke, Lucy felt an overwhelming urge to share her own contribution to this magical evening. Without fully thinking through what she was about to do, she stood up from her seat and, in a clear, sweet voice that carried beautifully through the small theater, began to sing her song, "Everything's Gonna Be All Right." The effect was immediate and profound. Elvis stopped speaking mid-sentence, his attention completely captured by the pure, innocent voice that had suddenly joined the evening's musical conversation. The audience fell silent, not in shock or disapproval, but in recognition that something beautiful and unexpected was happening. Lucy's voice, untrained but filled with genuine emotion and natural musical instinct, floated through the theater like a gentle blessing. The lyrics she sang spoke of finding hope in difficult times, of believing that love could overcome any obstacle, and of the power of family to provide strength and comfort when life became overwhelming. But it wasn't just the words that made the song special. It was the way Lucy sang them, with a sincerity and emotional depth that seemed impossible coming from someone so young. As Lucy continued singing, Elvis found himself listening, not just as a performer watching an audience member, but as a fellow musician recognizing genuine talent and authentic artistic expression. The song she was singing was clearly her own composition, and it was remarkable not just for its technical merit, but for the emotional truth it contained. This was not a child simply mimicking adult themes she didn't understand. This was a young artist drawing from her own experiences and emotions to create something real and meaningful. When Lucy reached the chorus of her song, something even more magical happened. Elvis, who had been listening intently from the stage, began to softly hum along with her melody, his trained musician's ear quickly picking up the chord progression and rhythm of her composition. The gentle harmony he added to her solo voice created a moment of spontaneous musical collaboration that no one in the theater would ever forget. The connection between Elvis and Lucy in that moment transcended the typical performer-audience relationship and became something much deeper and more meaningful. Here was the king of rock and roll, one of the most famous entertainers in the world, participating in a musical moment with a 9-year-old girl who had created something beautiful from the depths of her own experience and imagination. It was a perfect example of how music could bring people together across all boundaries of age, fame, and circumstances. As Lucy's song came to its gentle conclusion, the theater erupted in applause that was different from the typical concert crowd response. This wasn't just appreciation for entertainment, it was recognition of something profound and moving that had just taken place. Elvis himself was applauding, but more notably, there were tears visible in his eyes as he looked out at the young girl who had just shared something so personal and beautiful with everyone in the room. "Young lady," Elvis said, his voice carrying clearly through the theater's sound system, "that was one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. Did you write that yourself?" Lucy, suddenly aware that she had become the center of attention for the entire theater, felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she managed to nod and reply in a voice that was barely above a whisper, "Yes, sir. I wrote it for my mama when she was feeling sad." The simple honesty of her response seemed to affect Elvis even more deeply than the song itself had. Here was a child who had written a song not for fame or recognition, but simply to comfort someone she loved. It embodied everything that Elvis believed music should be about, using your gifts to bring joy, comfort, and hope to others. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Elvis asked, his voice gentle and encouraging. "Lucy Martinez," she replied, her confidence growing slightly as she realized that Elvis wasn't angry with her for interrupting his concert, but was genuinely interested in her and her music. "Well, Lucy Martinez," Elvis said, "I want everyone here to know that you've just heard something very special. This young lady has written a song that comes from her heart, and that's what all the best music does. It tells the truth about what we feel and what we hope for." He paused for a moment, seeming to consider something, then made a decision that would create one of the most memorable moments in his entire career. "Lucy, would you mind coming up here on stage with me? I think everyone would love to hear you sing that beautiful song again, and maybe I can help you share it the way it deserves to be heard." The audience erupted into encouraging applause and cheers as Lucy looked up at her mother for permission. Isabella, with tears of pride streaming down her face, nodded enthusiastically and helped guide Lucy toward the stage. As the 9-year-old girl made her way through the small theater, receiving smiles, pats on the back, and words of encouragement from other audience members, she felt as though she was living in the most wonderful dream imaginable. Elvis helped Lucy up onto the stage and positioned her next to his microphone stand, making sure she was comfortable and could be heard clearly by everyone in the theater. "Now, Lucy," he said, "I want you to sing your song just like you did before, but this time I'm going to play along on my guitar. Is that all right with you?" Lucy nodded eagerly, clutching her composition notebook against her chest like a talisman. As Elvis began to play a gentle guitar accompaniment that perfectly complemented her melody, Lucy closed her eyes and began to sing "Everything's Gonna Be All Right" once more. This time, with Elvis's professional guitar work providing a rich harmonic foundation and the theater's sound system amplifying her pure, sweet voice, the song took on an even more powerful emotional resonance. Lucy sang with growing confidence, feeling supported not just by Elvis's musical accompaniment, but by the warmth and encouragement she could feel radiating from the audience. As she sang, Elvis found himself not just providing musical accompaniment but being genuinely moved by the profound simplicity and emotional truth of Lucy's composition. The song was a reminder of why he had fallen in love with music in the first place, its power to express the deepest human emotions and to provide comfort and hope in difficult times. When the song concluded for the second time, the applause was even more thunderous than before. But what made the moment truly unforgettable was the sight of Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, wiping tears from his eyes as he looked down at the young girl who had just shared something so pure and beautiful with everyone in the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," Elvis said, his voice thick with emotion, "I've been performing music for a long time, and I've been blessed to work with some incredibly talented people. But I want you to know that what you just heard from Lucy is what music is really all about. It's not about fame or money or recognition. It's about taking what's in your heart and sharing it with others in a way that makes them feel less alone." He knelt down to Lucy's level and spoke directly to her, though his words were still picked up by the microphone and heard by everyone in the theater. "Lucy, you have a gift that's very special. Your song didn't just sound beautiful, it made people feel something real. That's what the greatest songwriters in the world try to do, and you're already doing it at 9 years old." Elvis then did something that surprised everyone, including Lucy herself. He reached into his guitar case and pulled out a small leather-bound notebook that he used to jot down song ideas and musical thoughts. "I want to give you this," he said, placing it in Lucy's hands. "It's where I write down my musical ideas, and I think it's time for it to belong to someone who's just beginning her journey as a songwriter. I want you to fill it with more beautiful songs like the one you shared with us tonight." The gesture was deeply meaningful, not just because of its practical value, but because it represented Elvis's recognition of Lucy as a fellow artist worthy of respect and encouragement. By giving her his personal songwriting notebook, he was symbolically passing along not just a physical object, but his belief in her potential and his encouragement for her to continue developing her remarkable gifts. As Lucy returned to her seat, amid continued applause and words of encouragement from the audience, Elvis resumed his concert with renewed energy and emotion. The spontaneous musical collaboration with Lucy had reminded him of why he loved performing, and the remaining songs in his set seemed to be infused with extra passion and authenticity. Throughout the rest of the concert, Elvis frequently glanced over at Lucy, and several times he dedicated songs to the young songwriter in the audience who reminded us all what music is really about. Each time he mentioned her, Lucy felt a warm glow of pride and belonging, understanding that she had been welcomed into a community of people who truly understood and appreciated the power of music to touch hearts and change lives. After the concert ended, Elvis made sure to spend additional time with Lucy and her mother, talking with them about music, asking Lucy about other songs she had written, and encouraging her to continue developing her talents. He even gave Isabella information about music programs and resources in Memphis that might be able to help nurture Lucy's obvious gifts, despite their family's financial limitations. The experience of that evening had a profound and lasting impact on Lucy's life and musical development. The validation and encouragement she received from Elvis gave her the confidence to continue writing songs and to begin sharing her music more openly with others. She joined her school's music program, started performing at local community events, and eventually formed a small folk music group with other young musicians who shared her passion for authentic, heartfelt songwriting. But perhaps even more importantly, Lucy internalized Elvis's lesson about the true purpose of music. Throughout her subsequent musical journey, she never forgot his words about music being a way to help people feel less alone, and she approached every song she wrote with the goal of creating something that would provide comfort, hope, or joy to those who heard it. The leather-bound notebook that Elvis gave her became one of her most treasured possessions, and over the years, she filled it with dozens of original compositions that reflected her growing maturity as both a person and an artist. Many of these songs were inspired by her memory of that magical evening at the Paradise Theater and the lesson Elvis had taught her about the responsibility that comes with the gift of musical creativity. Years later, when Lucy had become a successful songwriter in her own right, she often told the story of her encounter with Elvis to young musicians and aspiring songwriters. She would emphasize how a moment of spontaneous musical sharing had led to validation, encouragement, and a deeper understanding of music's true purpose. Her story became an inspiration to countless other young artists who were trying to find the courage to share their own creative gifts with the world. The impact of that evening extended beyond just Lucy's personal musical journey. The story of the 9-year-old girl who sang her own composition at an Elvis concert became part of Memphis music folklore, frequently cited as an example of how music could create unexpected connections and how true artists recognized and encouraged talent wherever they found it, regardless of age or circumstances. For Elvis, the encounter with Lucy represented one of the most meaningful moments of his later career. In interviews, he would often speak about the importance of staying connected to music's emotional core and the inspiration he found in working with young, uncommercial artists who approached music with pure hearts and authentic intentions. Lucy's song had reminded him of his own early motivations for making music and had reinforced his belief in music's power to express fundamental human truths. The Paradise Theater eventually installed a small commemorative plaque near the stage, marking the spot where Elvis and Lucy had shared their spontaneous musical collaboration. The inscription read, "Music lives in moments of authentic connection between artists who understand that the greatest songs come from the heart." It served as a lasting reminder of the magical evening when a 9-year-old girl's original composition had moved the king of rock and roll to tears. Lucy continued to carry the lessons of that evening throughout her life, both as a musician and as a person. She learned that courage to share your authentic self with others could lead to unexpected and beautiful connections. That age and experience were less important than sincerity and emotional truth, and that the greatest gift an established artist could give to an emerging one was recognition, encouragement, and the confidence to continue growing. The song "Everything's Gonna Be All Right" that Lucy sang that evening eventually became one of her most requested compositions, performed at countless concerts and community events over the years. But for Lucy, its greatest value would always be as a reminder of the night when her music had touched the heart of her hero and had opened the door to a lifetime of musical expression and connection with others through the power of song.